Hello everybody, welcome to episode 125 of Short Free, which today I'll be going over episode 1162 of the One Piece anime. Now, this episode honestly didn't really have much action in it, nor did it really have much progression at all, so it won't be that long of a video. But we start off with seeing the crew as they continue to run from Roto, who's pursuing them, and we see as they kind of talk about what they're going to do, and we see as they kind of reminisce on the idea, yo, we're at Elbaf, this is crazy and cool and all that, because it's our goal that we've achieved. But yeah, then we end up flashing to Luffy, who ends up propelling himself back out from the underworld after having spoken with Loki and agreeing to the deal. When he flings himself out, and he ultimately sees that he goes over, and we see as Goldberg and Gerd are crossing the bridge, and he notices they have the Sunny. He's like, yo, why y'all got the Sunny? He ends up pulling over to them, and Goldberg and Gerd end up revealing that, yo, they know who Luffy is, and they end up allowing him to tag along. So then after that, we end up getting a view on the Great Eric, which is the giant pirate ship, not the new giant pirates, but the giant pirates. And we see as they are progressing toward Elbaf, and ultimately they end up whipping out, once they reach like the seas around Elbaf, they whip out this thing called the Painter's Sunstone, which allows them to create a tangible rainbow in which they progress up toward the overworld, or not the overworld, but the sun world of Elbaf. So we see as everyone on the ship's like, whoa, this is so cool. Also, one thing I like to comment on, I'm glad they're keeping Bonnie in her like child form, because it's so weird having Bonnie in like the adult form. That's very odd, especially with how Toei handled it with Sanji. So I'm really glad to see that Bonnie is actually remaining in her child form, as she should be, because she's a 12-year-old child. But yeah, so we see as they end up progressing up toward, and we see as they slowly grow closer and closer to Elbaf. We ultimately see as new giant pirates, where at least Stanson and Harden end up pulling up, and they speak with the crew, and they're like, yo, where's Luffy and them? And they ultimately reveal that, yo, Luffy will be there in a little bit, and we see them as he shows the moose that he caught for them so they could try it and everything. But yeah, so then after that, we end up seeing as the crew ultimately set a trap to get Roto. So we see they set this trap up, and Nami and Chopper are left to lure Roto into the trap. So they get to going, and ultimately Roto falls right into the trap. Zoro cuts down a tree, and Sanji kicks it right on top of Roto's hand so he can't keep moving. And we then see as Roto kind of pushes through the trap and continues to try and acquire his ultra rare Nami and ultra rare Chopper. But yeah, so he's ultimately unsuccessful in acquiring his live dolls here. And we see as Gerd and Goldberg end up pulling up with Luffy and the Sunny on their like shoulder, and they recognize that what Roto is trying to do, because of his antics are well known. And they ultimately end up both hitting him with like a whap from their weapons. Goldberg with his like a mace, and Gerd with her axe, and he ends up getting flung away because of his unsavory, perverted ways. But yeah, so we see this, and then we see as Luffy reunites with the crew, and they're all freaking out. Him and Usopp are like reminiscing about when they were on Little Garden, when they first learned about Elbaf and everything, and it's really wholesome and everything. And then we see ultimately, as I call it the idiot trio, because it's Usopp, Usopp, Chopper, and Luffy end up all gathering together, and they're like, yo, we're gonna go find Elbaf. The village is that way, so they end up heading toward that way, and Gerd ends up yelling, yo, there are sea clouds there, so if you want to get there, you just have to walk that way and go along the clouds. But yeah, so we see ultimately as they reach the edge, and they're kind of skeptical about going into the clouds. Like, they're like, what if they're not even tangible? Luffy just ends up grabbing them and pulling them down there anyways, and they end up actually walking along the clouds. And we see as they progress toward the village of Elbaf, we see as Usopp's reminiscing, he gets a little bit teary-eyed and everything, because he's reaching one of his major goals, which was to become a great warrior of the sea and go to Elbaf. Like, that was two of his like biggest goals. But he hasn't a great warrior of the sea yet, but he will be, guys. Trust. The Usopp agenda is still alive, and it will still happen. But yeah, so they end up going, and we get this cool like massive view of Elbaf. Like, we get to see what's it called, Big Stein Castle or whatever it is, and we get to see the entire village of Elbaf. We get to see the kids playing around and everything. Also, I forgot to mention earlier on in the episode, we actually get a look at Colin, who is an important child, or Colin, however you want to say his name. He is an important child because he's the child of one of the more important characters in this arc, and we see as he's just kind of going around wanting to meet the Straw Hats because of what Shanks told him about him. We actually got to see him when Shanks was in Elbaf, and we see that the Great Eric passed by a little bar that he's usually attending, and well, not attending, but just like chilling in, and told him that, yo, Luffy and the Straw Hats were here. So he goes and runs to search for them. But yeah, back to like the continued part of the episode. But yeah, so we see this, and then we see as the crew kind of progresses along on the Sunny with the Giants. Well, actually, not on the Sunny, but with Gerd and the Goldberg. And they slowly progress. And then we see as the other group that are on the Great Eric, they progress all the way to Elbaf, and we see they all kind of commune in one area, and we get another big view of Elbaf, and we get the narration by the narrator about how Elbaf, beautiful place, all of that, but visitors should not overstay their welcome and stuff like that. So a foreboding, impending statement of almost doom just as they enter Elbaf. So let's see what happens with that, guys. But yeah, so that's all it really was for episode 1162 of One Piece. Now, like the One Piece anime. Now, this episode was honestly very slow, but it did have its moments, and yeah, it was interesting. It was necessary for the plot, and I'm ready to see what we do next episode. Because also, I forgot to mention, we got a silhouette view of a very important character who's coming up. It's Scopper Gabon, guys. I cannot wait to see Scopper's design in the anime, honestly, because Scopper Gabon is really a cool character, and especially his dual-wielding axe, like, battle style. So I can't wait to see what they do with him. But yeah, that's, like I said, that was all there really was for that episode. Like, nothing big, I'm not a short episode because the same length as always, but very short, like, story progression-wise. But yeah, that's all there really was for that episode. That's all I really have for episode 125 of Show Review. So thank you very much for watching.